I ordered sunlight off of the internet. It was great until my wife started acting funny. Reflect Orbita was a new groundbreaking tech company that sold daylight during the night. Go ahead and Google it and see for yourselves. They aimed to reflect the sun's rays over solar panels down here on the Earth's surface, well after it had gone dark, to maximize the sun's energy output. At first it sounded like something out of a sci-fi movie, but my jaw dropped when I Googled their website and everything about them seemed legit. Ordering sunlight was as simple as ordering an Uber. I typed in my exact coordinates, and like magic, everything around me lit up. I was even more amazed when I looked up and above me was a ball of shining light in the night sky. The Reflect Orbital app also came with a cool feature that allowed you to run your finger over a map of your location, allowing you to move the light around. I lived on a farm in a rural part of the country which lacked the orange glow of artificial light that lit up city streets. The only benefit of it being pitch black was seeing the stars in all their amazing glory on a clear night. Having acres of space meant I had room for solar panels, which is great during the summer, but in the winter when the days are short and gloomy, solar panels aren't worth shit. So having the ability to have bright natural light beamed from space seemed almost too good to be true. I wasn't expecting much, but I was more than surprised when the energy output of the solar panels was twice what you would get after a week's worth of natural light. It was as if they were juiced up with steroids, giving me enough energy to get us through 2 weeks of winter nights. "Stephen, come quick, you need to see this," called my wife, her voice beckoning me from the fields. My wife Susan stood in the cornfield pointing to the sprouts of green poking up through the freshly sowed cornfield. "Should they be sprouting this quickly?" asked my wife in a bewildered tone. I was as puzzled as she was. I had only sowed the field 2 days ago, and already the field was awash with green. I had a feeling the light I had beamed down from space had something to do with the miraculous growth of the corn, so I figured another night of sunshine wouldn't hurt. I used the app to focus the light on the field. As it basked in the warm rays of light, my wife's eyes fixated on the orange glow from the ball of light in the sky. She seemed mesmerized by the intensity of its warmth and lost in its heavenly glow. "Are you still with us?" I asked jokingly. As she stood there in silence, staring up at the sky, I noticed something strange. The shadow her body cast seemed to twist and morph into grotesque shapes, whereas I didn't seem to cast any shadow at all. The next morning, when I went to check on the fields, I couldn't believe my eyes. The corn stood 12 feet high from seed to harvest in just over 2 days. My delight was soon shattered by the sight of the corn. The ears that held the yellow kernels were deformed, even monstrous, and didn't look like your average corn on the cobs. I pulled one off the stalk and bit into it. The putrid taste assaulted my senses, causing me to throw up. The whole field of corn was affected. Nothing could be salvaged, meaning I would have to start over again. I spent the night tossing and turning, and when I finally drifted off, I was suddenly jolted from my sleep to find my wife's side of the bed empty. My phone was missing, and a bright light seeped through the cracks of the curtains. I went to the window and pulled back the curtains. It was 3 a.m., and it was as bright as a summer's day. My eyes were drawn to the edge of the cornfield where my wife was standing with her arms held high as if she were at Sunday Mass. "Susan, what are you doing out here?" It was like I didn't even exist. Suddenly her face turned to mine. Her eyes were black and her face twisted. "Can you hear it? It's calling to me," she said with a hollow voice before running off and disappearing into the cornfield. I tried following her, but she moved fast like a wild animal. Eventually I ran out of steam and was too tired to keep up, but she just kept on running as if she had an abundance of energy. After a long day of searching for her, I headed back to the house before it got dark. I prayed she saw sense and she would be back home waiting for me. When I made it back, the house was empty. My wife was my world. We had no kids, so all we had was each other. Knowing she was out there alone was killing me. Too restless to sleep, I sat on the back porch, hoping she would find her way back. I wanted my face to be the first one she saw, so she knew she wasn't lost. As I sat there looking out into the darkness of the fields, I noticed the faint sound of rustling that grew louder as it got closer. I stood there trembling as a group of glowing red eyes appeared from the darkness. The glowing seemed to surround the house as if moving in for an attack. At first I thought it was wild animals, so I flicked on the floodlights, hoping it would spook them. The creatures were startled for a moment, but they kept on coming. Leading the group was my wife, but not as I knew her. The light seemed to have affected more than just my wife. People I once called friends, along with other people from the town, had transformed into terrifying creatures. Before I knew it, I was surrounded with nowhere to go. I backed cautiously into the house and barricaded the door, hoping to buy myself some time before my inevitable death. As I looked around the house looking for something to protect myself, I came across my phone. My only hope was giving them what they wanted, so I opened the Reflect Orbital app and pressed on my coordinates. The night sky lit up, and everything went silent. I looked out the window, and the creatures had stopped dead in their tracks. They were now fixated on the ball of light in the sky. They stood just like my wife before, with their hands held up to the heavens. I wasn't sure if the police were the right people to call, so I rang the number on the Reflect Orbital app. After I explained my predicament, within an hour, a fleet of Reflect Orbital vans and trucks descended on the farm and began rounding up all the creatures, along with my wife. A guy in a suit approached me and introduced himself as a representative for the company. "What the hell is going on here?" I demanded. The representative pulled out a stack of papers. "Being a new company, we had some unforeseen consequences. The reflectors on our satellites reflect more than just the sun's energy." "What does that even mean?" I said as the anger in me began to boil over. Apparently our reflectors reflect light from other parts of the universe, places we know nothing about. What about my wife? I asked. Your wife will be fine in about a month or two. We will get her back to you after you sign these NDAs. To get my wife back, I would have signed my soul away, so I signed whatever he wanted me to. Before he left, I had one more question. Why wasn't I affected by the light? The representative shot me an empathetic look. In our studies, we noticed people with cancer weren't affected. We don't know why it happens, but you should go get it looked at. At least you will catch it early.